The tow strap went tight. The rain turned the street into a mirror, and our HOA president looked me in the eye and said, "My status grants ownership." A heartbeat later, the strap snapped like a gunshot. My hubcap skated down the asphalt like a silver coin looking for a slot. And I realized this wasn't about chrome or paint. It was about whether I had to bow to a clipboard on my own driveway. 2 weeks later, when the cuffs clicked, I didn't cheer. I just let out the breath I'd been holding since sunrise. I'm Cole Harris, the kind of guy who believes a wrench turns a bolt. A wire carries a current you put in the work, and you get the result. And for 2 years, my result was a 1962 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud II that I dragged home looking like a raccoon motel and brought back to life one busted knuckle at a time, while my wife Maya held the light and the playlist, the smell of polish and primer in our garage, like a second weather system. And that morning, I eased her into the dawn just to see the gray paint glow and the spirit of ecstasy lean like she meant it. 2 mugs of coffee and 1 quiet moment we'd earned. Cedar Heights sells moments like that. Trimmed hedges, golden retrievers, newsletters about pickleball. But the brochure forgot to mention our HOA president, Brenda Halbrook, who walks like she's late to fire someone and writes emails with more exclamation points than verbs. And I saw her coming the way you see. Weather roll in across the lawn onto the street. Then up my driveway with a clipboard and a face that could curdle milk. "What is this?" she said, eyes never leaving the rolls. "A car," I said, because sometimes you have to try for normal before you surrender to nonsense. "Don't be cute," she snapped, citing Section 8 like she'd slept with the bylaws under her pillow. Then her expression flipped from disapproval to hunger, and she pulled a huge yellow tag from her pocket like a magic trick. "Property of Cedar Heights, HOA," looped a zip tie around my hood. Ornament rasped it tight and announced, "This is now a community asset lead car for Heritage Day. Do not tamper." Maya was already recording, because she's the kind of woman who knows the difference between gossip and evidence. And I told Brenda it was my title, my VIN, my fingerprints in the paint. And she gave me that chilly smile that says, "Power is just theater," and whispered, "Bylaws are open to interpretation, and I am the interpreter." Then turned on her heel like a queen, dismissing a peasant. I took photos of everything, VIN stamping title on the fender, that ugly tag swinging like a bruise. Then I went to my grandfather's old red toolbox, pulled precision snips, and cut the plastic necklace off my car. Bagged it, labeled it. Because if someone's going to play silly games on my property, I'm going to keep the pieces, you know what I mean. A week later, the letter showed up on angry letterhead. 500 for tampering with an official notice. 500 for failing to comply with the board president total. 1,000 plus. A note that if I didn't surrender the vehicle within 48 hours, it would be considered abandoned and towed at the owner's expense, which made me laugh the way you laugh. When your body doesn't want to scream because the car lived 10 feet from my kitchen and Brenda lived on Planet Y. Said so. Sunday night, I barely slept at 5:45 a.m. The rain started at 600 burs. The saddest tow truck in the county rattled to my curb with a skinny kid behind the wheel and Brenda under a big golf umbrella commanding the weather like it worked for her. And I stood between the truck and the rolls, told the kid this was my car, on my property, and if he hooked it and scratched so much as a whisper, I'd come after him and his company, while Brenda tried to bless the scene with a clipboard and a promise to report me for non-compliance, so I rolled my old F-250 out, parked nose to nose with the rolls, ran the heavy winch cable under to the rear axle, set the brake, and turned 2.5 tons of Ford into an anchor. The kid swallowed hard. Brenda peeled off $200 in damp cash. Bonus hook it now. And he slid on the wet pavement, jammed a J-hook and a nylon strap. Somewhere dangerous, then jumped into his cab and hit the gas. The chain clanked. His tires squealed. My winch sang tight. The rolls didn't budge. Brenda yelled, "More!" and the strap snapped with a crack that punched the morning. The chain whipped his own fender. My hubcap popped off and skated like a puck to a perfect stop. He killed the engine, climbed out, tossed Brenda her soggy money, and said, "Nope," climbed back in. And left, and Brenda stood in the rain, staring at that hubcap like it had betrayed her while I wiped it with my sleeve and said, "You'll need a new plan," which didn't improve her mood. By lunch, the group chat was on fire. Crying, laughing emojis, little neighborhood philosophers. And I knew humiliation doesn't make people thoughtful. It makes them reckless. So when our power died at 1:00 a.m., and the rest of the street glowed fine, I felt it in my bones, a scrape on the back fence, 2 hooded figures dropping into the yard. And I whispered to Maya. They were going for the side gate to roll the car by hand. And I didn't call the cops first because I needed them caught here. So I slipped into the hedge. Shadow, the side gate has a latch inside, and a heavy bolt outside with a padlock. I usually leave hanging open. The latch clicked the gate. Started to swing, and I stepped in with a flashlight, blinded them. Took the push that came, slammed the gate, dropped the bolt, snapped the lock. Clack. And suddenly, one genius was locked outside on the wrong side of the fence, and the other was stuck inside my yard, blinking on wet grass. "Congratulations," I told him. "You're in timeout." And Maya, cool as you like, filmed while I called 911 in a voice that sounded like I was ordering takeout. And while we waited, she photographed the breaker box where the metal latch was sliced clean. The boot prints in the mud. The shavings. The little details that turned stories into charges. Sergeant Valerie Cruz arrived with a partner. We showed the footage and the evidence and the line that mattered most. Brenda said this would be easy, and the trapped guy folded in 30 seconds. Name of Drew Halbrook. Brenda's cousin, $100 each, to flip the breaker, open the gate, push my car to the corner where she'd be waiting in her minivan for... what exactly? Yeah, that happened. The thing about people who like rules is they usually mean rules. For you, not for them. I knew a slap on the wrist wouldn't remove her from the gavel. So we started building the kind of case that survives side-eyes and potlucks. Exhibit A, the title in my name, with VN photos read out loud. Exhibit B, the zip tie video with her community asset line. Exhibit C, the $1,000 fine letter and tow threat. Exhibit D, the rain show with the strap. Snap you can feel in your teeth. Exhibit E, the night vision fence, hop with her name on it. Exhibit F, the cut latch and boot prints. And then I wrote an email to the HOA's insurer, Horizon Mutual. Not as the guy with the car, but as a concerned homeowner. Does our liability policy cover the use, seizure, or transport of a privately owned vehicle for a community event? And would any claim arising from a vehicle not legally owned or leased by the HOA be covered? And the reply landed in 48 hours, like a judge's mallet. No coverage for procurement or seizure of private property. Any such claim would be denied. The HOA would be solely liable. That was the twist, where my fight became our neighborhood's fight, because Brenda wasn't just trying to steal a car, she was about to put every homeowner's wallet on the line for her vanity. And when I caught our treasurer, Oliver Pratt, watering roses, I didn't threaten him. I just said the truth. Tomorrow, this all comes out. You don't have to go down with her. Maybe check for an invoice labeled Parade Consultant. And he gave me the smallest nod, like a man asking permission to do the right thing. The annual meeting packed the community center. Folding chairs, scraped concrete. The projector fan hummed. Brenda tried to sprint through the agenda and adjourn before air could enter the room. And I stood Tom from 2 streets over, said, "Let him speak," and the room backed me. 5 minutes was all I needed. Slide 1. The yellow tag hanging off my hood ornament like a bruise, and her voice claiming community ownership, slide 2. The $1,000 letter, and the tow threat. Slide 3. The rain and the tow, and the strap snapping, and the hubcap skating laughter, where anger needed to breathe. Slide 4. The fence hop, and the line. Brenda said this would be easy, and for dessert, a short clip Maya found by scrubbing earlier that night, where Brenda herself creeps up to my car and works a screwdriver at my license plate like a raccoon with a diploma, then gives up and scurries away. And finally, the insurer slide that said, "No coverage. HOA solely liable." And I let the silence sit until Oliver stood and said he checked the books and found a $10,000 payment to a parade consultant that is a shell with 1 employee at the same address as Brenda's newly arrested cousin. Board member Alicia Kim took the gavel. Like it had always weighed better in her hand, called a vote to remove Brenda. For cause, the ayes were a wave, the nays were missing. The double doors opened, and Sergeant Cruz stepped in with 2 officers and read the charges: attempted theft, criminal mischief fraud. And when the cuffs clicked, there wasn't applause because justice doesn't need noise, it needs weight. I didn't celebrate. I just felt something heavy lift, the way a jack takes a car off your chest. Went home, pressed the hubcap back on, with that soft thud. You only get when a circle finally meets its seat, and took the slow lap. I'd wanted weeks earlier, not a victory lap, more like a weather report. The for sale sign on Brenda's lawn already staked like a surrender flag, and I gave a polite toot of the horn because punctuation matters. You might say I turned my neighborhood into a courtroom, and maybe I did. But bullies count on you hating scenes more than they hate stealing Saturdays. They bet you'll be too tired to assemble exhibits and ask a neighbor to stand up and say, "Let him speak." And sometimes, the only way to keep what you build is to show everybody what almost broke it. You know what I mean. So tell me where you're listening from, and tell me straight. Did I go too far or not far enough? Are HOAs protecting standards or protecting control? Where's the line between community and ownership for you? And if you've seen a clipboard, try to rewrite reality on your driveway. Drop that story too. If you think I earned it, hit like. So this finds the next person staring at their own yellow tag. And if you think I was wrong, say why. I can take it. We keep what we build, and we learn when we listen.